So imagine you're standing on a street anywhere in America, and a Japanese man comes up to you and says, "Excuse me, what's the name of this block?" You say, he says, "Okay, but what is the name of the block?" You say, "Blocks don't have names. Streets have names. Blocks are just the unnamed spaces in between the streets." He leaves a little confused and disappointed. So now you're standing on a street anywhere in Japan, and you turn to the person next to you and you say, "What's the name of this street?" They say, "Well, that's block 17 and this is block 16. And you say, "Okay, but what is the name of the street?" They say, "Streets don't have names. Blocks have names." Derek Sivers in his TED Talk says that sometimes we have to go to the opposite side of the world to realize the assumptions that we didn't even know we had, and realize that the opposite of them may also be true. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, differences. Here at Heston, 38% of students are from outside of Kansas. 13% of students are from outside of the United States. So it's clear that we have broad worldviews here on our campus, and we can even continue to broaden them by learning about the people around us. Bentley University in Massachusetts even talks about how having this global perspective increases your employability. In the new global workplace, they say, millennials need to see the opportunity in their cultural differences. They ask, do you have what it takes to effectively collaborate with people who may look, act, and think differently than you? Well, how do we do that? Cultural humility, that's my argument. Cultural humility is this idea of lifelong learning. We may not know everything about other people, and we may be quick to label them, but what would it look like to kind of go slower and not be so quick to label someone and realize that we'll never know everything about someone? But first today, we need to prove the issue of ethnocentrism, which is placing stereotypes on other people. This is present in the United States as well as here at Heston. And then we'll look a little bit at what cultural humility looks like. So first, our problem, ethnocentrism is in the United States. We see this in stats from a Princeton article that determines ethnocentric attitudes. When they ask the question, ethnocentric minorities should adapt to mainstream American culture, agree or disagree, 44.6%, which is the biggest category here, says yes. So this is the idea that in America we need to have one culture, and if you're different than that, you need to adapt to us. And this kind of builds walls between other people. And there's a story of this in the Arkansas newspaper from a couple years back. El Cooley is a freshman college student from Egypt, and she said, "You would think I'd be more Americanized because I've been here so long. But I don't think that's the case at all. I think my parents stressed our culture and our religion more because they worried it would get washed away. So right now our culture is one that washes away people that we see as different rather than welcoming them in." She even remembers a time where someone said to her, "You're here now, so why do you dress like that? You don't have to do that because you're in America now." That's an ethnocentric mindset. We also see some ethnocentrism in the 2016 campaign rhetoric, often by Donald Trump. So Jim Patterson from Vanderbilt University said that Donald Trump often used the terms us and them. So he would say, "Let's protect the country against Muslims," or "Let's build a wall between us and Mexico." And just this simple word choice that he would use continued to break apart America rather than welcoming all people in. We see this in some of his Twitter posts as well. He would say, "Well, sadly, because President Obama has done such a poor job, we won't see another black president in generations." Or he would say things like, "The overwhelming amount of violent crimes in our major city is committed by blacks and Hispanics. We have something that needs to be discussed." And so these statements are using his own culture to judge other people rather than being open to a bigger problem than this. So how does this relate to you? It's present at Heston too, whether you believe it or not. When you come here, you take the Global Perspectives inventory and it asks you some questions that may seem rather silly about your worldview. And one of the statements that they ask you is, some people have culture and others do not. So the purple is what you guys responded, and so that's great. The majority of you disagree with this statement, saying that more people have culture. But the average at Heston is at a 3.1, which is more to the agree side. And then when they're leaving, they're only 0.2. They've only changed by 0.2. And so that's your job, to be the agents of change, speaking up about everyone has culture, and we need to be open to sharing that. Joe Monicum even recognized the need for a broader worldview in his inaugural speech. He said, "We often place labels on international students, and we call them international, but really we've all come from a different place, and we all have culture to share with each other, so why do we create these barriers between people on campus?" So we have this ethnocentric attitude, these stereotypes that we're quick to put on people. So how do we solve that? Cultural humility. Cultural humility recognizes differences and is open to them. But what does it actually mean? So some North Carolina professors from universities put together research, and they came up with a couple qualifications for what cultural humility is. And this is what they said. They said that you acknowledge layers to cultural humility. It's not like this once and done thing or class you take and you're like, oh, I'm culturally humble. It's this lifelong process where, okay, I've reached a step where I recognize differences, and now I'm going to reach a step where I'm open to them, and now I'm going to reach a step where I'm asking questions about people that are different than me. And then recognizing that there's power imbalances in the United States. So there's people, because of their ethnicity, who are given more power than others. So how can we continue to create equality? And the last thing is self-reflection. We get to say who we are. No one else can tell us that. And that's a privilege that we have. Melanie Turvalon is a physician and an author, and she put together a film on cultural humility. And she quoted, "Each of us comes with our own histories and stories, our heritage, our point of view. I get to say who I am." She has blonde hair, blue eyes, and people often label her anything but African American. But that's what she recognizes her heritage to be, and she gets to choose that. So cultural humility just kind of isn't quick to put a label on someone, but rather allow them to say that. So how do you start that here at Heston? Campus dialogue. Starting dialogues for people to speak up who feel like they've been put labels on, or if the people that are putting those labels on, to kind of hear that people feel like they're getting boxed in. Michael Bua is an example of someone who's speaking up. He's a journalist, and he published something that said, "An open letter to the woman who told my family to go back to China." And it actually got a lot of publicity because of the power of his words. He said, "Maybe I should have let it go, but I was honestly stunned when you yelled, 'Go back to China.' Maybe you don't know this, but the insults that you hurled at my family get to the heart of the Asian American experience. It's this persistent sense of otherness that a lot of us struggle with every day. That no matter what we do, how successful we are, what friends we make, we don't belong. We're foreign. We're not American." This is ethnocentrism, folks, and it can be solved. It's already happening here at Heston. There's some students from a Jesus in the Gospel class who are working on a project this Friday, actually. They made an announcement today in chapel. They're going to Wichita State University, and they're sitting down with students from the Muslim Student Union, and they're basically just talking. There's some going to be Christians, there's going to be Muslims, maybe atheists, all religions, just learning about each other, recognizing that I don't really know all there is to know about the Islamic religion, but I'm going to learn, and I'm open to that. And that's what cultural humility looks like. And so cultural humility doesn't demolish ethnocentrism. It won't get rid of it, but it will continue to open doors to more open mind and a peaceful world. The Association of American Colleges and Universities said that we're working to being integrated and engaged. Is it better? Not yet, but it could be. And you guys are the agents for that change.